All right. Hello, everybody. We'll let everyone load on in for another Metabolic Monday with your boy, the Metabolic Mentor, Vince Pitstick, who has been in the field of Western medicine, functional medicine, aesthetic, and fitness nutrition for over 18 years. Just about 18 now. We're getting close, and birthday comes around the bend, and we're going to let everyone load on in. We're going to talk about a few exciting announcements as everybody gets a chance. We'll give them a second to load on in. Let me know as you're loading up in the chat. How was your Monday? How stressful was it? Was it like a 1 out of 10? Was it real kind of chill and easy? Or was it like a case for the Mondays and a 10 out of 10? Drop it in the chat. Also, let us know where you're watching from. We like to use these Metabolic Mondays for what? Education. There's a lot of random nonsense out there, a lot of confusing world, all kinds of different advice. You hear your doctor say one thing, you hear your nutritionist say another thing, your trainer say another thing, your best friend say another thing, your favorite influencer say another thing, and it just leads to analysis paralysis. You don't know what to do. So we like launching these Metabolic Mondays to spend an hour with you and to cut the fat, essentially. 1 out of 10, what's going on? All right, we got a 2, 1. 8 out of 10. Monday was very good. Got a lot of work done. That probably means you had a 2 out of 10. So stress could be high, but it still be good. Why does stress have to be bad? You know what I mean? I choose to work hard, and it can be stressful and hard, but that's good. That's okay. That's nothing wrong. All right, 9 kind of day. Tim, well, it always gets better. And the best thing about Mondays, they end. So we don't have to worry too much about that. We're getting close to down the bend. Zam, 0 out of 10 for Sharon. All right. Hello, everybody. We'll let you all load on in. We'll give it a little bit of time. I want to say thank you again. We had a record number for both of our international coach search 2023 for Nutrition Dynamic. We are currently going through the interview and cut process right now. Many of you are getting emails about who got acceptance letters and who did not. So if you're one of the members that applied, I hope you made it. If not, there's always a chance. We do these twice a year. Do not be dismayed. And then the same also for anybody that had applied for our MMU is our second annual MMU scholarship program. We had like over 250 applicants for that. It was absolutely incredible. And we had some lucky winners, and then many of you got offered partial scholarships. So if you haven't gotten a call yet, you probably will. Our amazing team from Caroline, Sharon, Cam, and some of our other team have probably reached out to you and talk. Well, let's go. What's up, brothers? It's good to see you on here on another live. Again, what the format is like. Here's how we do this. So I'm going to take your questions live, essentially from our questions tab in my stories. I'm going to feature a couple questions. Oh, last day to claim your MMU partial scholarships. Caroline, letting you all know. Make sure it's on that. MMU will make you the most. I mean, I might sound biased, but I know this for a fact because the numbers and the outcomes don't lie. We'll make you one of the best functional practitioners, best coaches in the country. And while we're giving people some discounts and some hooking them up on partial scholarships, do not miss out. Take a look at that. Check your inbox if you had applied. Again, all right. So we're gonna focus on a couple questions, and this time we're actually we're doing a lot more live interaction from the chat. So we take your questions. So we'll take questions from our stories. We're going to focus on about 3 of them, but we're also going to do a lot of interaction just from the chat for questions. We want to make this more interactive with you so you don't feel like you're just watching but participating. So we are going to do that today. So if you have a question for me that is related to the topic, please ask it. But then if I say, hey, we'll take open questions for a little bit, which will happen at many different segments, instead of just the rapid fire like we did at the end before, then we will do that. So when I say, hey, I'm open to any question, just drop that question right in the chat and we will knock it out. If I don't get to it, one of our amazing people in the team will get to it. We've got Cam in there from MMU. We've got my amazing assistants, Colin and Waleed. We also have Caroline from MMU. They can answer any question that you might have about nutrition, your own health program, university, all the different things that we talk about, maybe a product that we discussed, and we'll make sure that you get the right information that you need to help you on your journey no matter what you're doing. That's what we're here for. We don't ever talk anymore. We don't hang out. You don't write. You don't call. So we created the Metabolic Monday Hour. exactly for that. So without further ado, let's drop into our first question. Producer Keone, post miscarriage, she put on some weight, obviously coming off her miscarriage. Again, we're sorry to hear that, Emily. And she actually asked this in 3 different questions, so we couldn't post all of them. But in 2 weeks in and flamed since the start, is this a good sign? So what Emily is actually talking about is something that's very common for women to go through during a miscarriage. And again, Emily, very sorry. I wanted to talk about this topic. It's a very sensitive topic. And I think thank you for being brave and sharing this with the group so we could use this question to educate and inform and inspire, which is what we like to do with this hour. First thing that I think a lot of people should know about miscarriage. Oftentimes a miscarriage, and I see this with our clients all the time, and I've worked with a lot of physicians around the world that look at miscarriage in different ways. And I think it's important that if anybody's getting pregnant for the first time to kind of look at it from this perspective too. Oftentimes the body, due to environmental factors or due to health factors, will choose to eject the first egg regardless of what you do to a certain degree. Because statistically speaking, the first one is less likely to come to full term. So a lot of times when a body primes up, right, for pregnancy and is going to try to take an egg to term, a lot of times the first time that happens, particularly you see this oftentimes with ectomorphic females, or you'll end up seeing this with people who have been really sick in the past. A lot of times the first one will be a quick, ejection of the body essentially. And actually it sets the stage for a high statistical probability of full term for the second attempt. So a lot of times when we do fertility programming or we do fertility planning, at Nutrition Dynamic, we're doing functional programming, I think it's important to point out a lot of times what we try to talk about is that there's the fertility planning and there's making your body healthy. And then there's the getting pregnant, and that's another step closer. And then no matter what happens in that first trimester, which is when most women are susceptible to a miscarriage, usually it's going to happen within the first 8 weeks. Is that if there is a first trimester miscarriage, now if we're talking outside of first trimester miscarriage, there may be other health issues and deeper issues that we want to dig into, even in first trimester, but more likely in second and third, there might be something a little bit more seriously wrong. But in that first trimester, I try to tell all of my clients once they get pregnant, okay, listen, we just need to be grateful that we were able to receive the blessing of pregnancy. We're going to take it one day at a time, understanding that should anything happen, it's not likely to happen, but should anything happen, that this was one step closer to the goal of having a child, right? I think what happens a lot of times is right when families get pregnant, the first thing they do is humanize it. Whether it's a name too quickly or they're planning the futures out right away. And so they get themselves built up to that state, and then maybe at 4 weeks or at 5 weeks, they have a miscarriage. They've already built it up so much to this human being that existed that it's a really big loss, right? And what I try to have families do, or people that are expecting families do, is to understand that at first, especially in the first trimester, let's not try to humanize it too much. Let's just try to enjoy the fact that we've reached a healthy fertility or we've made it to pregnancy. Should anything happen, that's okay. We've gotten one step closer. Let's get your body healthy again, and we'll take the next step to full-term pregnancy and then also a child, if that makes sense, right? And that seems to really help families get through some of the challenging aspects that can be miscarriage, because they are quite common. And I'm going to be honest with you, since COVID, for infertility, or at least miscarriages, are significantly on the rise. And this is why I thought this was a great opportunity to talk to you about this, particularly if you're coaches or if you're an expecting family or something like that, that I like. So for example, Emily here, Emily, I would say to you that you are one step closer now because of the miscarriage to having a full term pregnancy and happy baby, right? So let's stay positive. Of course, grieve, do the things that need to be done. I think it's important for all those things to happen. But once we recognize that this is actually just part of the process of becoming or of getting a child, I think it changes the way that we look at what happened and prepare ourselves for the hope of the future rather than what we perceive as the loss of the past. I think that's really important. So getting proactive and helping our body get healthy through that process so that next time our chances of having a successful child, it goes up, right? So one of the things that we recommend at Nutrition Dynamic and we teach at our university in regards to fertility is something called a hormone flush. Now, why would we teach that? Well, that's because when someone becomes pregnant, every week, I think even up to, I think it's a week at the end of the second trimester, I believe, maybe in a little bit further, the HCG keeps going up. So HCG up, we'll get to astronomical levels like 250,000, right? Something like that. And a lot of times, depending on how far the child is along, that HCG is going to get higher. So that when you have a miscarriage, per se, it's going to take even longer for your hormones to even out because that HCG got so high and now has to come back down. So for a lot of people, you know, if you can flush your hormones, if you can start eating Mediterranean, trying to balance your body out, get back into a normal rhythm of healthy exercise, re-engage life. Hopefully, you know, some people get really depressed and they get isolated and it can take longer. But if you get out in the community, if you get into healthy interactions and healthy lifestyles as soon as you can after a miscarriage, the faster your body's going to rebalance out and the quicker you can go back and attempt again if you want to. So a lot of times though, when you try to push hormones out, Emily, what's going to happen at first is a lot of people, because of the miscarriage, will go estrogen dominant. So when we're trying to push hormones out, also that HCG is floating around and going down slowly. So it's very common post miscarriage that when you do a flush or something like that, and you're trying to push things through, as hormones move through, you'll be a bit watery and it'll hold for a little bit. But don't be dismayed if you keep going Mediterranean programming. I really like Hormone Plus Complete. I really like Jumpstart EC. I really love those two products together. You may want to look at your, I would say probably I would look at my HCG level. I don't know, every 2 to 4 weeks if you could, to take a look and see, because once HCG really hits zero is your chance to really soar and go after it again, if that makes sense. So Emily, hang tight. It will get better. And I am very confident that if you do all the nutritional recommendations from your functional coach, if you take this challenge head on and understand that next step will be full-term child and a healthy baby, I think you'll find very soon that will absolutely happen. So hang tight. God bless. And hit us with another question at Metabolic Monday. All right, we're going to go ahead and take some questions from the chat. Go ahead and drop me anything you want to talk about. We're going to take a little bit of interaction. Does anybody have any questions about fertility programming or anything at all regarding their program, how to lose fat, anything like that at all? Go ahead and drop any questions. I will start to create some interaction with the chat. So what do we got? Somebody hit me with something. What do we got? Let me hear from you. Have you worked with people who have been diagnosed with MS? Yes. I don't know if that's Chris. I don't know how to say that name, so I apologize. It's an abbreviation. But yes, MS is obviously a form of autoimmunity that attacks the central nervous system and attacks your nerves, often the myelin in the nerve, and then also the nerve communication between essentially the brain and the central nervous system. And of course, starts off in numbing in certain areas or tingling in certain areas. Maybe it's your arm, maybe it's the side of your face, maybe it's your leg. And so it starts off that way and can become more progressive. Now, I would say one of the really cool things about MS, unlike other conditions, is some of the long-term medications that now do exist for MS, like the shots once a month and stuff like that. Those actually don't have very much side effect potential and have really good outcomes long-term. I don't usually like allopathic medicine, but interestingly enough, there's been some good stuff in the field of MS over other autoimmune conditions, which I really like. Now, I will tell you this, that what we know MS to be is actually something called OID, overactive immune disorder. You have an overabundance of T and B lymphocytes that are not being pulled back down or regulated by M2 macrophages or T regulatory immune cells, called Treg cells or Treg cells. There's a balance inside of the body. And we notice almost everyone with MS, by the way, MS almost never affects men. It seems to be way more in women, which is interesting. It can happen in men, but it's way less common. We see a strong connection between hormonal-based birth control and MS, and that's one of the things that's always concerned me over the years. Not always, of course. It can happen in many different ways. But what I will tell you is there's a lot that you can do to balance out your immune system, because the interesting thing about MS is that even though it's affecting your nerves, it's also doing other things. You'll notice that it has a lot of symptoms that are not nerve related, like brain fog, swelling. Maybe you're getting some hair shedding on and off. Maybe you're a little bit sleepless, right? Maybe you're having random GI issues that you can't explain. These things will come up. And I'll tell you, when we go through a process, particularly focusing on the gut and the immune system, you can actually calm over immunological function and calm it down. And many people go, drug-free with MS all the time. And so it's really worth exploring, especially exploring the world of fasting. There's also a medication called rapamycin that we use sometimes with it. That's pretty incredible with our clinics at Advanced Vitality. And so I think it's really important to consider all of your options. I would go to my link tree on my Instagram. We're having breakthrough results with MS, like incredible results. You're going to see some posts from us on this. And if you go to my link tree and watch the OID webinar, you'll learn more about how senescent cells are building up inside of the central nervous system, and they're building up around nerves, and they're shutting the nerves off. And that actually you can use things like autophagy and other things like that may be extremely beneficial to the long-term results related to MS. So there's plenty of hope for you, whether you work with us or not. But I want you to know there's absolutely hope. I know there's not much on the internet about MS. Go ahead and go back up, Producer Keone, for just a minute. All right, can you please talk about how taking Plan B affects hormones? Yeah, this is really interesting on the Plan B side. I was actually going to pull up so I can read a little bit of this. But a lot of times what happens is, well, this is interesting, right? So Plan B is a mega dose of levonorgestrel. So levonorgestrel is what's in the Skyla, Kylina IUD, okay? So they give you a mega dose. And what that does is create an ejection of the egg. You can also do this using HRT. I'm not saying this takes the place of Plan B by any means, but I'm saying that you can induce ovulation by megaloading bioidentical hormone replacement, but you can also induce the release of the egg in an early period, essentially, by using mega doses of levonorgestrel, which again is a synthetic progestin, right? And so the problem is, Mel, is that it totally messes up your menstruation cycle, because now you've shortened it 14 days or whatever you've done. And again, it does take you micronutrient deficient. I'm telling you right now, listen, this happens to everybody, okay? I don't want to single anybody out or make anybody feel any different, but Plan B happens a lot, right? I really recommend liposomal B12 methylfolate, and a round of our Hormone Plus Complete, because you go to dump everything, and the mega load that they give you of progestin eats up so many minerals and vitamins inside of your body, like, because it's such a mega dose. So you get nutrient deficiency times 5 that you would get on a birth control, because you're taking way more than, you're taking a mega dose of. I wanted to think how many days you're I think it's, I'm trying to think. I think the amount is, I want to say the dose of Plan B is like taking a month's worth of hormone almost. I know I'm a little bit off there, so don't quote me, but taking it all at one time, right? Now, is that gonna is that going to devastate your body? Well, you do that too many times, you're asking for it. I'm not gonna lie. But I will say that if you take appropriate side actions, if this happens once in a while, I don't think it's the end of the world. I will tell you, women that have autoimmune conditions in their family, I highly do not recommend Plan B at all costs. Let's be safer, not sorry, because it can trigger long-term effects. I've seen it, not in one dose usually, and it can be after. But anyways, yeah. So that's how Plan B works. Does your plan help with mold, toxicity, and detox? We do a lot of mold conditioning and mold programming. It can depend on what type of mold and why you have mold. So people that have mold, there's like 2 typical reasons for this. One, you either are under constant exposure, you're being overexposed, and you have poor detox pathways. Now, you can have massive acute exposure. Like, let's say, for example, I don't know, there's like so much in this house and you end up spending a weekend in there. Or you can have a little in your house that you're in all the time, and you can have genetic SNPs that help you fight off mold spores and detox this stuff very poorly. That can happen. But on the other hand, what happens to people more often than not is that they have immunosuppression from high stress. And so ironically enough, a lot of times people that go through a great gut protocol and then use some colloidal silver or some other agents and then balance their stress out a little bit more will clear most of their mold. If the mold stays in their body, it can be for a couple of reasons. One, they're getting misreadings from their laboratory, because a lot of things that we eat and breathe have mold. That's why you have to be careful with mold tests. You'll get a lot of false positives, so just kind of be careful with that. And it's actually the immune system that's the problem rather than mold itself. Mold, by and large, in a normal, healthy person cannot grow in your body. Your body is too hot. Okay, that's why Aspergillus niger, if it could grow inside of our bodies, it would kill us all, for sure. You should see what it does in the plant or in the insect kingdom. It's quite devastating. Insects don't have the same internal temperature, same the mechanisms of protection. That being said, if you have poor detox pathways, when you are exposed to mold, you're not getting rid of it. That could be what you're seeing, or you're seeing subtle immunosuppression, or you're seeing an acute exposure. Most people, though, again, if you go through a detox program, the right one, and you're also working the gut at the same time, you can clear a lot of that out. So yes, we do a lot of that. All right, let's hop to the next question. Producer Keone. All right, transitioning into perimenopause. Hormones are crazy. Any suggestions? 100%. So let's start off Bronx Bomber 12. All right, this is a great question. This comes up all the time. First off, I don't know your age, but if you're 45 or below, even 50 or below, you can really stave off perimenopause in a full lifestyle revamp. You know, I don't know how much you're training, I don't know how much you're stressing, and I don't know how much you're working. If a woman spends more time, so let's say you fall into perimenopause, do me a favor, journal your day. How much of your day is spent being overactive, worried, anxious, and fearful? And if you go through your day and you realize that 90% of your day is spent in that place, then you found one of the major roots of why you're in perimenopause, because it will just blow out your progesterone levels, leave you estrogen dominant. And then if you're a chronic dieter a lot of times and you're high stress, all your hormones will eventually deplete. And then you'll start having perimenopause-like symptoms at a much, much earlier age. So one of the first things that I always want women to understand is that if you want to be a healthy, vital female, you have to control your lifestyle and you have to control how much you stress, worry, and fear. And you do that through a really strong lifestyle process. You know, I really encourage some faith, meditation, walks, dopamine fasting, right? Don't always be plugged into the world, always rushing to complete the next task to make you feel better about yourself. There has to be a balance of start and stop in your life, processing your emotions, not just bulldozing through the day to the next task, filing your emotions away for another day. That is a bad recipe for healthy hormones, because as you think, so goes your hormones. So if you are unmanageable here, your hormones are going to be unmanageable. Now, is it that simple? No, I understand it's harder than that. There's plenty of things that you can do. But any woman that wants to talk to me about perimenopause or menopause, I like to start with adaptogens first. So, and stress and lifestyle management. So I highly recommend Bacopa, ashwagandha, lion's mane. There's a good balance called Herbal Adrenal Stress Pro that we have. I do like Adrenal Stress from Dr. Wilson's that you can add with it. Also Cordy's if you're really, really high stress. So one of the first things then I would do is do a Dutch test. A Dutch test will really look at all of your hormone pathways. We don't realize you don't just have 3 hormones, test, progesterone, and estrogen. You have about 38 hormone metabolites. You have 18 estrogen metabolites. You've got 2 or 3 progesterone. You got 5 or 6 androgen. Anyway, the point is what their balance is, how you detox them, the alignment they're in will totally change that. If you balance your alignment out of hormones, you'll jump right out of perimenopause. You know, a lot of times, one of the simpler answers to switching your diet. I cannot convey to you how much a poor diet and alcohol will send you into perimenopause earlier. So a lot of people just need to quit the alcohol and all of a sudden their perimenopause symptoms go away. So I don't know where you're at with that either. So again, you don't want to hyper-convert from a pro-inflammatory diet your androgens into estrogen, right? That's called aromatase, right? And you don't want to overstress and pull your progesterone into cortisol, which is called progesterone steal. That's why the next step from lifestyle change, adaptogen support, would be something that balances your hormones out, usually starting as support at the top. I would recommend Jumpstart because it helps with androgens, progesterones, and estrogens. However, some people need more progesterone support, so I highly recommend, if you're in perimenopause, a product called Progon B. I would probably take 2 or 3 drops, but before I do that, I would probably want to do a Dutch test. So great stuff there, Bronx Bomber. Thank you for your question. We really appreciate you. Let's jump back into the chat. I saw some great questions in there. Let's see what we got. Let's see what we got. I have a client who's 7 weeks pregnant. Wow, perfect timing. Awesome, brother. After her gyno today, she was told her to take Puran T4 25 milligrams. Her TSH is 389 and should be 370, but she has never had any issues prior. Okay, thoughts. So really great question. So there are many women that when they get pregnant, it will tank their endocrine system. They're pretty stressed out. One of the things that I would really look at too is to make sure that she doesn't have gestational diabetes going on a little bit too. So I might look at her glucose levels, brother, 2 hours after she eats, like a 2-hour post-pran deal. And if her sugars are in the high hundreds, we got a problem. Because if she's going hypothyroid and her sugars are going high, that means her progesterone is going to start tanking. Her HCG is going to start tanking. So that's a bit of a scary recipe. And she's right at that point where a lot of people, 8 to 10 weeks is that week, man, cross your fingers. That's like the valley of death. 8 to 10 weeks. It really is. It's like you get through that and then you only got a week left to get to to get to a week and a half left to get to the past the first trimester. It's like walking a balance beam, man. It's like, so my recommendation there first is that personally, I don't mind T4 at 25 micrograms, especially in pregnancy. However, I have better results using Thyroid Boost Plus. I would use Thyroid Boost Plus. I would also support her progesterone levels with 2 or 3 drops of Progon B. And I would really carefully look at her glucose levels. If they're shooting through the roof, Houston, we have a problem, right? So it is not uncommon, though, for women to have some of these issues. That's why a lot of times in pregnancy, I'll have women take thyroid support. So be very cognizant. Blood sugar, progesterone, thyroid levels, you know, and HCG, but you can't do much about HCG. That's on the that's a marker of the pregnancy. You can't change that. Thoughts on testosterone, Liz? Great question. Thoughts on testosterone for women over the age of 35? Well, it all depends, Liz. It all depends, right? So the first thing that I'm going to want to look at is why. What's going on with the client? What are they trying to do? What kind of lifestyle are they trying to live, right? And so if first off, if we're having brain fog, fatigue, if we're eating well, if we fed up in the past and testosterone did not go back up, then classically speaking, you're going to have generally low testosterone. So testosterone at 5 or 8 milligrams, maybe up to 15, depending on the individual, might be beneficial. However, again, Liz, I think the real question comes down to what does their total androgen profile look like? So that's why a Dutch test, because you're going to look at androstenedione, androsterone, testosterone, because there's more than just testosterone. Most women get their energy levels, they get their hair growth, they get their muscle building ability from androsterone, not testosterone. So if I see lower testosterone on a Dutch test, but I see higher androsterone, then I feel like they're fine. I'm not going to worry too much about it. Oftentimes women at 35 fall on the fence, Liz. You can try Jumpstart EC. You know, I think there's you can really use, I really like Humanifort. I like D-aspartic acid. I like maca root. Oh my gosh, it goes on and on. I like deer antler. I like zinc. I like all these things, right? And I try those things first along with balancing the lifestyle. But again, if I've got a client who loves training in the gym like an athlete all the time, her androgens aren't that great, testosterone's low, 100%. Testosterone, the research is out. If anybody fucking tells you that testosterone is dangerous, unless you have factor 5, factor 7 clotting factor, which is less than 1.5% of the population, they're just wrong. They're 100% wrong. Testosterone used in the correct dose is 100% safe. Not only that, it is anti-cancerous. So with balanced testosterone levels, you are less likely to get cancer. That's a fact. Same thing with progesterone. So, for me personally, I'm a fan. Do I use testosterone all the time? No. Sometimes I'll use peptides. I love tesamorelin and ipamorelin for female. Sometimes I'll use a SARM, like plaque laxogen. Sometimes I'll even give them 2 or 3 milligrams of oxandrolone, which is replacement androgen therapy. So, these things happen. Bam. A double crossing. All right. Asks, would eliminating carbs, going keto, help gut health? Great question. I get this question all the time in regards to keto, in regards to gut health. What are the best things that we can do? There is a place for keto. There's a place for high-fat diets. Everybody, when they say the word keto, I always cringe a little bit because I think they're thinking in their head really high protein with some fat, which would be more of a aesthetic keto or a bodybuilder keto, right? And that's not truly keto. That's more of a paleo with more fat. Some men can still get into ketosis with that, but most people can't. I think what's important to understand that's important is keto will never get rid of bad bacteria. This is important. So if your gut is having problems digesting carbs, you're bloating, you don't know what's wrong, and you go to a zero carb diet and it reduces your symptoms of bloating and issue, you might think that it solved my gut issues, but it did not. What it did was reduce your symptoms, but it did not solve your gut issues, okay? Because when you starve, most bacteria, okay, they feed through a process of fermentation. And if anybody understands fermentation, that's what happens to carbs. So carbs get fermented in the gut, right? And they break down, and the body can use that bacteria to make vitamins and do different things. Well, it also, when the bacteria do that, they release acids. So if your gut's inflamed, or if your gut has, if you're really stressed out, your body may not be able to handle the acid release from the fermentation of the carbs. This is why low FODMAP diets are so popular, but they don't actually solve anything, because more FODMAPs just leads to more fermentation, okay? Which leads to more acids. So reducing that just means you release your acid production, which reduces your bloating. But you still have the bacterial imbalance or the stress imbalance that's causing the problems. So for me personally, right, what you need to understand is that you should reduce your carbs. But if you go to zero carbs, those bacteria that typically cause the problem will go dormant, okay? Meaning that you'll have a hard time getting rid of that bacteria. They don't starve and die. They go dormant. Now, there is some autophagy that's done through fasting and a little bit of ketosis. There's certain strains that would die from that. But majority of bacteria that causes problem is called commensal bacteria. And commensal bacteria is very hardy. So it is not going to die when you go paleo, or when you go carnivore, or when you go keto. Okay? This is why, if you really want to solve gut issues, you have to know exactly what carbs to leave in based on what's going on, because the bacteria's got to keep feeding, and then you use killers, and that's when it's easiest to kill the bacteria. That's why people struggle with gut issues forever, because nobody actually gives them the right process to solve it. That's why MMU is so important. We have huge courses just dedicated to the gut, to understand it correctly. Just because you reduce symptoms doesn't mean you heal the gut. So most people will go low FODMAP, or they'll go keto and go, oh, I have no symptoms, so my gut must be solved. But now they're stuck there. And then guess what? The problems come back, because you never solved the problem in the first place. So going keto does something called diet variation. If you don't have major gut issues and you just want to diversify your microbiome, then going into keto is a phenomenal idea. I recommend it almost anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks of every year. You should go keto or carnivore to help create and promote microbiome diversity. It is imperative. It is great for the gut, switching up the organic acids, creating diversity, right? Reducing inflammation. It is a fantastic idea, and you should do it. But if you've got massive gut issues, going keto is not going to solve your problem. That is a trap, and will end up making it worse later, okay? And if you care more about this information, go check us out, metabolicmentor.com. And get into our 1-on-100 Facebook group. We've got great information and detail in there. You can go in there, drop and ask questions, all of the things. So great question. I don't know what your name is, but it's a cute name there. A double crossing. I'll take that. Anyway, all right. We have got to, let's see where we're at. We are right at 6:51. I will take just a couple more questions. Starting Elemental this week. Any suggestions? No, sit back and enjoy. Elemental is actually pre-digested vitamins and nutrients, so that you have very low digestive issues and it's easy to absorb everything. What else? Let's see. I'm going to read some of the questions. It's kind of hard for me to read some of those questions from the chat. Ooh, and we've got, go back. Let's see. Go back to that ooh factory, let's see, there it is. Directly affect hormone levels. Well, it depends. Stacy, 100%. I think it's Stacy. 100% it does, because you're removing an ovary where your hormones are produced, right? Now, if you're having one removed, it will impact it, but it won't shut it down. But if you're having both removed, you're going to need hormone replacement. And I hope your doctor's talked to you about that. And if he hasn't, you should reach out to our team. Me and our medical team can support you through that transition. I hope it's necessary. Maybe there's some form of endometriosis, or maybe something going on that would require that, or a cancer or something. So I don't know what's going on, but my prayers are with you. What background education certifications do you need for MMU? Liz, great question. So we actually, with the way our program works, is we have different course tracks based on your level of education. So let's say if you wanted the full health coach certification, but you have no experience, not a problem. We start you in our fundamentals. We get you the fundamentals cert, which then gets you into the full health course foundation cert, which gets you into our full track. So you have what you need. It's more about having some background information that you would need to make full use of information in the cert. Now, we also have an integrated medical cert coming out. That'll be for licensed practitioners. But for the most part, we have a track based on whether you're a trainer, you've never been a coach and want to be a coach, or you're a dietitian or a functional practitioner. Awesome. Thanks for answering. At MMU and level 1, does it address this? Yes, it does. You're right on track. So yes, you're going to learn all about level 1. Wait a minute. In level 1, you'll get up to flush. It does get into gut. You will get into some of that level 1. What's your birthday wish, Vince? Oh, what is my birthday wish? I'll tell you. My birthday wish is that before my career's over, that I take you all and my band of coaches and we raise an army and we shift how health services are delivered in the United States. And I want them to be delivered through the care of a functional health coach with a functional health practitioner, changing the world and lives all over the world. That would be my greatest wish and my birthday wish, that we could accomplish that in our lifetime. And we can fight back against the lifestyle disease in this country, because very, very soon it's going to take out 7 to 10 of us. And it is the pandemic of our time. People don't realize we don't have much time left before disease is all we know. Everybody's on 3 or 4 medications. Half the country will be on mood or mind altering medications, and they'll have stolen, meaning the government, big food, big pharma, will have stolen the number one greatest source of wealth that we have, which is our health. With that said, I think I'm going to close out this Metabolic Monday. Let me check something, team. I couldn't get to you next Thursday, but we're going to jump back on, I think on Thursday. We'll drop it in the morning. I think we're going to try to do more of these. So we'll let you go. We'll drop an announcement Thursday morning. If we're going to do a live on Thursday, I don't want to set an expectation that it can't meet. I will absolutely get to some of your questions from our questions tab. I appreciate you all. Love you all. Have a great rest of the week. Peace.